What's good, y'all, and welcome to another vid. So, the Mother of Crows is here and you want to know how to beat her to the best of your account's ability, and that's what we're here for today. So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about the popular heroes, we're going to be talking about the fight mechanics, and then team comps to reach X amount of score based on my experience. So, first off, let's talk quickly about the boss's mechanics. Alright, so now for mechanics, let's go into an instance of a fight, and because it's really hard to explain this without you seeing what is happening. So yeah, in this fight, the Mother of Crows summons these crows. These crows are colored and every color corresponds to a different buff. Red means your heroes get increased attack when you kill it, yellow means your heroes get increased attack speed, and green means your heroes get increased health regeneration and also increased rage regeneration. These crows become more and more throughout the fight, they also become more tanky, and then you have these flames. Every time these birds fly left and right, or as soon as they hit these flames, they collect them. Once they collect 6 flames, depending on the flame color, they're doing the opposite of what the birds usually do based on their colors. So, for example, once 6 red flames are collected, all of a sudden you're getting a debuff for reduced attack as well as getting AoE damage taken. As long as 6 yellow flames are collected, AoE damage, reduced attack speed, and the most dangerous of them all is the green flames, because the green flames lead to a loss in health in the form of a kind of like curse / poisoning, and also a loss of rage regen, which you've seen with the symbol right there. Outside of that, also furthermore, once these birds collect 6 flames, they lead to one of these feathers. Once you collect, or once the boss collects 4 feathers, it's an instant wipe. So no matter how tanky you make your team, you're not going to be making it past 4 phases of these birds going left and right. Now it's time for the most important mechanic which makes this fight even possible in the first place, and that is accursed shackles. When under control, different effects will reduce different attributes of these crows. There's only one slight issue, and that is even with the official introduction of the boss fight, if you read through it, you don't really get an answer to which debuff does what. So yeah, CC effects reduce jet crows, you should bring CC heroes, blah blah blah. Let me show you what that actually translates into, and that is right here. We're going to be placing down a Silas, and that Silas is just going to basic attack. Now let's let him basic attack these crows and look at the damage he's dealing. It's between like 8,000 to 8,300. These crows seem to be taking some bit of true damage once they collect their flames. And that's pretty much it. There's even the 4,000, you can see it at some point, and then there's again like the 8,000. Everything stays pretty much the same, right? Now, all of a sudden, if you're introducing a slow from someone like a BEELZEBUB, the change is directly imminent. So here we get the slow, and all of a sudden, we're dealing 100k per hit rather than the usual 8k, and that is just with the basic attacks. So from what I can tell, at least, slow seems to be by far the strongest debuff you could get here. I've played around with a couple, though they also aren't nearly as tangible as slows. Slows coming mostly from like BEELZEBUB Beatrix. I mean, if you take a look at this, we also have Fox Girl right here. Obviously, she deals damage by herself too. But here's no crowd control effect. Then we have the Winter's Bite, and then you see all of a sudden it's only like 60,000 damage. I have no clue if like maybe Winter's Bite is like better, Winter's Bite is worse, Freeze is better, Freeze is worse. But it does seem like slow is the strongest, just from raw like damage potential or whatever. Because there is nothing, I mean, okay, technically there is something special about BEELZEBUB, and that's the fact that he has an inspiration set, but no. And then obviously the last mechanic, you've seen it already. Once you defeat all the crows, Mother of Crows goes down, which means she enters the vulnerability phase, she's finally hittable, and then you can hit her for big damage, as well as also every time she goes down, she gets rid of these feathers, so you're not going to get wiped after just 4 phases, as long as you down her in between. So now let's talk about team building, and we have to start with the most important hero for this fight. Not only for the fact that he slows, but also for his inspiration, and that is Beelzebub. Let me quickly show you why he is so disgusting for this fight that it isn't even close between him and any other inspiration unit. So let's introduce Diao. Oh, would you believe it? Diao only boosts one tile. Maybe it's different if we use a Dolores. Oh wait, Dolores only boosts one tile. Oh, maybe Durza. You guessed it, Durza only boosts one tile. What about Constance? Oh yeah, there are no ground tiles. And then all of a sudden you have Beelzebub, a hero who naturally slows, who slows even more during the ultimate, and is the only hero in the game currently that inspires more than one tile with this weird ass tile set. You can see him reaching over and barely with the last row reaching the bottom here, giving him 1, 2, 3, with him included 4 tiles he's boosting, and that's not even half of it, because also if you were to run him in a curse team, he would also be providing healing and be your team's healer. So Beelzebub is absolutely nasty, and all other inspiration heroes do not work for this fight. Now for the first lesson in team building, let me show you why Lyra is great and Phineas is useless, and it's honestly super simple, and that is we can just place down Lyra, but there are not a single tile for ground units. That means the only relevance ground units have is as lords for platform units. So if you wanted to use a ground unit like Oraka, that only makes sense if you're bringing someone like Silas and Hex, though at least with Oraka you're in luck because Silas and Hex are pretty nasty, though then again you are losing a unit you're placing down. So keep that in mind, all ground units do not work, and the only reason you would want to bring a ground unit is for Lord bonus benefits. Now let's talk about the difference between AoE and single target. You would think that if you bring AoE heroes, you're going to be able to get rid of the crows faster because you're hitting more crows at the same time, and it should be better. But actually the issue is there is only ever 6 crows, which means on both sides where you have like one lane and then the other, there's always only going to be at maximum 3 enemies per side. So the highest amount of enemies your AoE units can hit is just 3. And 3 is already pretty much way too close to single target capability anyway. So what most of the time ends up happening is you rather going with single target, because the advantage that single target has is it is what boosts your boss's score. Single target boosts your boss's score because the boss is the one that makes the score go up. Yes, you can kill as many crows as you want, but if you don't hit the boss hard, your score isn't going to go higher. So single target does reign supreme in comparison to AoE. Though there's a couple exceptions, and that is, for example, being Beatrix. So Beatrix has 2 advantages. Number 1, she has the ability to let her summons fly over the whole map. So she can attack the left lane, she can attack the right lane. They don't have to be in her range. So her AoE is like more, she just has more AoE over the field, more targets to hit. And also something that makes her valuable is the fact that she has a chance to inflict the slow either by herself or with her summons, again giving her utility. So if you're looking for someone that does AoE damage, that unit better also deal a form of crowd control in slow, stuns, winter's bite, whatever else it might be. Yes, you might think of Fenris, but Fenris is restricted in his slows only when he has a shield, where the uptime isn't all that infinitely amazing. So that is a single target versus AoE. So what do you do if you don't have a Beelzebub? The answer is not as simple as you might think, because it's sadly not Elowin. The reason why it's not Elowin is because you're getting the rage region already from these crows, as well as like the overall boss effect. So Elowin sadly doesn't really do a whole lot, which means if you don't have a Beelzebub, what you want to do is you want to bring 6 DPS instead, a split between single target and AoE damage, or better said, a split between single target and also debuffers. And that's what you want to bring. And the reason why you don't want to bring healers is because no healer can reach more than one tile. The same way no inspiration hero besides Beelzebub can inspire more than one tile, which means you would either have to bring 3 healers and then only 3 DPS, which just leads to you having low DPS and then probably dying against the Midnight Crow feathers, or just bringing 6 DPS and staying alive through the killing of the green crows. Alright, so lastly, before we get into the real runs, let's talk about gearing. How do you gear your units? The answer is pretty straightforward. If you have a Beelzebub, you can afford yourself a bit of crit damage in form of like 1 piece of crit damage, maybe a second one as long as you have Warlord on the left side. If you don't have a Beelzebub, you really want to build for as much attack as possible, because you're not getting any inspiration to offlay these effects from anywhere. Now, one exception to this is still going to be Silas. You can build Silas with a bit more crit damage, and the reason for that, even with or without Beelzebub, is the fact that you ignore 100% magic res and defense during your ultimate. So overall, characters that are ranged and have a natural ignore for defense, like for example Silas, or to an extent even Talent, you can run them with 1 piece of crit damage, but if you don't have a Beelzebub, or because Beelzebub can only inspire up to 4 units, the other 2 units of yours should be built with maximum attack in mind. Then as a last note for gearing, HP substats or HP flat substats might come in more useful to you than, for example, attack flat substats, and that's for the simple fact that the boss does their AoE, the boss does their tick damage, and the more HP you have, the more you're going to get healed from the green birds and the more hits you can take. So depending on how your run goes, how far you make it, it might be in your favor to go with HP flat or HP percent as the substats rather than something more offensive to make it further into the fight. Alright, so for our non-Beelzebub team and also non-Yova team, we're going to be using Lunaria as the Lord, and Lunaria is just a preferable option because you have the ability to inflict the immobilized state, which obviously also counts as a CC, and outside of that also she's more consistent on the field. She can just stay on the field versus a Elysia, who would you have to put down, pick up, put down, pick up. Or you could go in a different direction and use someone like a Morrigan instead and go more towards the Curse faction with, for example, swapping in an Aurora for Boreas, and then going with a combination like that. So let's go into the fight, and let's go with the team formation, because team formation here is honestly pretty simple, and that is just simply because of the fact that everybody hits from everywhere. So it does not truly make a difference who you put where, because everybody can hit the boss. One thing that I did find a bit more helpful is having your strong single target units placed outside, because it just felt like they were able to hit the birds more, but in both cases you're going to have 3 tiles of range. So that's technically not really a factor that should affect you. And then, yeah, you're just going to place your units. And interestingly enough, this is one of these bosses where I feel very comfortable recommending you to just auto ult, and the reason for that is because there's so much rage regen gained here that most of the time your units are already ready to ult once their ultimate runs out, or at least close to, and there isn't really a super specified time you want your ults ready, because if you have your single target ults ready, you're going to be able to kill the birds faster. If you kill the birds faster, you get faster into the vulnerability, and if you just have your single target abilities ready for the boss, yes, you do a bit more damage, but you take longer on the birds. So it kind of feels like a fight where truly ult timing does not play such a huge role in and of itself. Now, placement wise, there's a couple things you could do. So you have to decide, do you place them at the top or do you place them at the bottom? If you place them at the top, your strongest DPS, The units or the birds that give you the attack increase are going to be dying first, meaning that you will be able to kill the other birds faster but have less of a buff on the boss. If you were to place your strongest units at the bottom now, all of a sudden the green birds are going to die faster, meaning you're getting faster access to the rage region and then also to the healing. So I prefer having my stronger units more towards the bottom if I can pick, if I have a choice. But here you can see we weren't able to kill any of the green birds fast enough, which just leads to us getting wiped. And that is sometimes the way it happens. And let me actually show you something interesting. And that is, if we take exactly this score, 362,000, we click OK, click on upload fight data, we click on complete. And then, just because for the fun of it, we go into an auto fight and let that auto fight run. You should see a difference in score just simply based on randomness. So what might be helpful for you is set a team and then just let that team try multiple times. Especially if you have auto ultimates active, there should be no difference. No matter if your team makes it further or not as far, because in all cases all ultimates are going to get used as soon as they are ready. So let's see how big the difference is. We had a 362 run. Now let's see what happens with this completely, or not completely, but slightly different run with the same build-up. So here once again we are getting into the dangerous one with the green flames. So for the green flames, what we really want is one of the green birds to die. So come on, can we please get one of the green birds? There we go, one of the green birds died, but the healing did come too late, leading to us again dying at the same time. So this is the exact same team, exact same formation, exact same everything, and all of a sudden we've made it 130k faster even on auto ultimates. And if you were to run the same run on automates multiple times, you're also going to get different outcomes. The best example I can give for this is me hitting a 2.3 million score on with a team, and then just running the same auto fight again, and all of a sudden we've hit for 3 million, so like an 800,000 increase. There is again a lot of RNG going into this. It's not something you can particularly plan for. So this is going to be our BEELZEBUB team. You can see another change, and that is us introducing Enora instead of Nyx. Enora is just at the end of the day the hardest hitting AoE mage, especially if there is no inspiration given to that unit, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing here, because we bring in Hex, and then we obviously give him our Wings of Grace set, because Hex is by far the highest damage dealer here. He just kind of leaves Silas in the dust. And then we're gonna bring in our formation. If you're running Beatrix and BEELZEBUB, I would just recommend running them at the same time so that they can help each other out in speeding up the summons and also making her stronger. And then here at the end, it's just gonna be us placing down Enora. So from this point onwards, we're just gonna go to auto ultimates, because then again, there is so many ultimates you have to click. Timings, do you want to kill the birds faster? Do you want to hit the boss? Preferably you want to do all at the same time. And even if, especially it happens like towards the later ends of the fight or the higher your awakenings are, you're going to get to a point where all ultimates are pretty much almost always active, and that is because Beatrix gets more rage when her summons disappear. Hex, especially once A3, his ultimate is so long he's gonna be full rage anyway by the time his first one ends. BEELZEBUB, if you have him at A3, all of a sudden gains 2% rage per attack, also meaning he'll basically spam that shit 24/7. And if you also set it on auto ultimates, if you were to run the whole thing in an auto fight again, what you're going to notice is that obviously the fight is going to be able to continue the whole time, simply because of the fact that your units are going to continue ulting even if you haven't yet made it to that point, because there's the command of just use the ultimates as soon as they are ready. So here we go, 376, getting into this boss fight. Yeah, here obviously it would have been to an extent helpful if Silas was ready, or if Beelzebub was ready, but then again, you might have failed to kill the crows, and if you failed to kill the crows, you wouldn't have made it to the fight in the first place. It's messy. That's yeah, that's all I can say about this, honestly. So yeah, here you can see us closing in on 570,000 to 30. What I noticed the most though is it becomes really hard to survive past a minute 30. That is just what I noticed naturally during these fights. And that is, you really want to do most of your damage before that 1 minute 30 mark. Because at that point, every time the boss uses Unholy Trinity, so one of these attacks, the attacks just keep hitting harder and harder and harder, leading to your units dying faster and faster and faster. So there we go. Here we obviously still have Hex staying alive, but that's just because of Hex being Hex. And there you go. It's like probably one of the worst B scores, though. Yeah, it is. I mean, let's look at the damage numbers, and you kind of see that Hex is doing his job, Silas is pulling his weight, and then you have Honora and Beatrix, and Lunaria, she just can't quite keep up. And this is the exact same team with Lunaria I've showed you before, just the only difference being you using a Morrigan instead, and we even got unlucky here. It could have been higher than 1.1. So this is like the difference between like a B and an A plus, is just, for example, bringing in a Morrigan. The same could be true if you were to bring in a Demi. It might even be a bit better, because Demi at least here synergizes decently well with these. And then let's spend the time right here before we get to like the rest of it on a couple comps that are at least somewhat interesting on global. Alright, so here you're also going to notice kind of like the most important unit of them all, which is no Yova, it's not Hex, and it's not Silas. No, the most important unit of them all is Mary. Nah, just kidding. It's unfortunately Lady Alex. Yes, Lady Alex is by far going to be the biggest difference maker when it comes to getting incredible scores. And that is simply because of the fact that Lady Alex hits everywhere, right? Lady Alex has the ability to hit everywhere on the field, so she can hit birds, be it they're in their lane, outside of their lane. She has that true damage, she has good or incredible single target damage, and she also then again once more works under someone like a Yova. And then at least here, hey, we get a bit of Merrick action. Merrick, because of him being placed next to a platform unit, getting sent into his AoE stance. But hey, in his AoE stance, you're at least getting that freeze, you're getting the Winter's Bite, which is the reason why he at least made it into it right here. And then yeah, Mary obviously, because you have that permanent uptime, and then you can also trigger the ultimate for the freezes. You can also see build wise here, Mary obviously is built as like a raw support with the ability to inflict the Wings of Grace, Nightmare Samsara, so you can really just cycle that ultimate, and also Rage Region stat wise as much as it was possible to be gaining. Then once again, Honora, just because she's the strongest AoE mage outside of like an inspiration hero. You can see here top 10 everywhere. You have a Baba and 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 a Baba. So yeah, Beelzebub, he's quite important. And then yeah, you have a smidgen of other units, but if you check them out, the performance of someone like a Pelagus A5 even, it truly isn't quite enough to move the needle. But hey, if you have a highly leveled Calypso, she might be getting you places. So yeah, single targets again over AoE, slows and everything are quite helpful, and that's what you should take away. Oh yeah, and then for those of you curious, yes, you can still get to like an A, maybe an A plus if you have good enough other units outside. I mean, you can see though, sadly there's someone with the Lady Alex only getting to an E. And also, hey, it's the same stopping point, 65025. Not quite, it's a bit different. But yeah, here you can see a team that does not include Beelzebub, where you're relying on a lot of single target in all of these four. Then her, because she's strong without inspiration. And then obviously Mary for the freezes, for the slows, for the crowd control. So lastly, with the way this codex is built, at least as of this moment with day one strategies and whatnot, if you want to reach as and above, Beelzebub is pretty much a must. And then the higher you can get is, at the end of the day, mostly determined by awakenings. Though obviously not necessarily just awakenings. Something you can also do to help this whole thing along would be to obviously have some cracked out gear. And even if you have gear like this with like perfect foresight subsets, do still focus on attack above everything else. Yeah, so pretty much something like this. Still go with full attack. And then even if you have the perfect left side gear, if you wanted to make an impact, even if you have an inspiration unit, in most cases, attack still turns out to be stronger. So yeah, have a Beelzebub. Lady Alex is nasty useful. And the higher your awakenings on units, especially like a Beelzebub or maybe even a Beatrix, the further you can go. Hex's awakening A3 being quite important for the infinite ult uptime. And Silas also having the ability to boost Hex, as Hex is also another marksman. Once you have that A3, also does certainly help. So with that, I'm going to leave you to it, and also I'm going to just end it on like the rambling from our last video where I show you how a SSS score looks like. It's not the most minimal comp to get it, but I guess it's at least nice to see how you was like the peak with like 3 million. Whatever. We see each other in the next one. Peace. Yeah, so as you can see, this was the same run. We just cut short a little. We've completely overshot the score even by up to 800,000, and main contributors performance-wise, again, Hex doing around 50 million more, Silas also with this incredible damage, and then the rest also picking up the slack. So yeah, that is pretty much this codex. I don't think there's a lot more to say. There's probably a lot more to like check out building-wise or build-wise, but yeah, it's a really chaotic fight. It is a really chaotic fight, and it doesn't even feel like you're in control. And it's also one of these times where you can probably get away with like having some better auto timings or like some better ult timings to get a certain scenario that is favorable, but this 3 million score, right? We set that on full auto. And especially with, for example, Hex spamming his ultimate, Beelzebub spamming his ultimate, Beatrix spamming her ultimate, there isn't all that much that you could be doing differently anyway. And yeah, it's an interesting codex. There's probably going to be more than just one team that can get 2.2 million. But again, it's less of an AoE codex than initially thought. It's really more of a single target with AoE flavor in Beatrix and Beelzebub. So yeah, there we go. Okay, 216 left, 2.3. Let's see if we can figure out why the score went so high. Everybody's still alive, it's always a good sign. There's the attack bonus. And then here we have to hope that we kill these green birds before we get one of like the killer phases. There we go. Yep, perfect. So we were able to kill the birds before they imploded. And now, yep, now we're in the poison phase, and then probably the next one. Oh, with the double birds. Yeah, as you see, for example, here we just had really good RNG, allowing us to still stay alive here. So yeah, maybe HP builds even aren't the way, because none of these characters are truly built for HP. And yeah, this is the new codex, and we see each other in the next one. Peace.